The day my brother Logan called me paranoid for the 100th time was the same day I watched FBI agents surround his house through my laptop screen. My name is Amanda Chen, I'm 29 years old, and for the past 6 years, I've been working as a cybersecurity consultant for federal agencies, a fact my family has never taken seriously. They thought I was just playing with computers while they built their real business empire. What they didn't know was that their empire was about to crumble, and I was the only person who could save them from spending the next 2 decades in federal prison. If you've ever been dismissed by your family as the paranoid one or the worrier, only to watch your worst fears come true, this story is going to hit differently. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you believe family should listen when someone's trying to protect them. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with people who understand what it's like to be the family prophet of doom. Let me take you back to where this all started. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I was always the cautious one in the Chen family. While my older brother Logan was the golden child, star athlete, business school graduate, natural leader, I was labeled as the anxious perfectionist who worried too much about everything. My parents, Henry and Grace Chen, immigrated from Taiwan in the 80s and built a successful import business from nothing. They valued bold action over careful analysis, which made me the odd one out. Logan had taken over the family import business 3 years ago, expanding it into what he called high-end luxury goods distribution. Our parents were so proud. Finally, their son was making the Chen name synonymous with success in Portland's business community. Meanwhile, I was working remotely for what they assumed was some tech company, living in a modest apartment, and apparently wasting my computer science degree on glorified tech support. If they only knew that my security clearance was higher than most FBI field agents, or that I'd helped take down 3 major cybercrime rings in the past 2 years. But to them, I was still little Amanda who couldn't even negotiate a better apartment lease. The first red flag appeared on a Tuesday morning in March. I was reviewing some encrypted communications for a federal task force when a familiar shipping company name caught my eye, Chen Luxury Imports. My heart stopped. The company was mentioned in connection with a money laundering investigation that had been building for months. I immediately called Logan. "Hey, I need to ask you something about the business." "Amanda, I'm in a meeting with potential investors." "Can this wait?" "No, it really can't. I need to know about your new shipping partnerships, especially any companies based in Vancouver or Miami." Logan's voice went cold. "Why are you asking about this? Have you been snooping around our business?" "I'm not snooping, I'm concerned. There are some companies in those areas that have been." "Amanda, stop. Just stop. You do this every time. You find some conspiracy theory online and decide our family business is somehow involved. We're successful, and I know that bothers you, but you can't keep trying to tear us down with your paranoid theories." My stomach dropped. "Logan, I'm not making this up. I have access to information that suggests." "Information from where? Your blog reading? Your true crime podcasts?" "Amanda, you work tech support. You don't have access to anything that could possibly affect our business." The dismissal in his voice was like a slap. "I don't work tech support, Logan. I've tried to explain what I actually do, but none of you ever listen." "Right, you're some kind of secret government agent. Very mysterious, Amanda. Look, I have real work to do with real consequences. Please stop trying to sabotage our success with your anxiety disorders." He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, the classified documents spread across my desk painting a very clear picture of what was coming for my family's business. But how do you warn people who refuse to believe you have access to the information they desperately need? I tried a different approach with my parents. That weekend, I drove to their house in Beaverton for our monthly family dinner. The house was immaculate as always, filled with expensive artwork and furniture that Logan's business success had provided. Mom was cooking her famous dumplings, and Dad was reading financial reports at the kitchen table. "Dad, can we talk about the business for a minute?" He looked up over his reading glasses. "Of course, sweetheart. Are you finally interested in joining us? Logan could use help with the computer systems." "It's not about joining, it's about some concerns I have about certain partnerships." Mom turned from the stove. "Amanda, you're not going to ruin dinner with more of your worry talk, are you?" "Mom, this is important. I think Logan might be working with companies that aren't what they seem." Dad set down his papers with a sigh. "Amanda, my dear, your brother has increased our profits by 300% in 3 years. Whatever you think you know about business, he's proven himself. But that's exactly what concerns me. That level of growth isn't normal unless what? Unless he's doing something illegal?" Mom's voice was sharp. "Amanda Chan, I cannot believe you would suggest such a thing about your own brother." "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm trying to warn you that there are federal investigations into companies that..." "Federal investigations?" Dad laughed. "And how exactly would you know about federal investigations? Do you have friends at the FBI now?" The irony was crushing. "Actually, Dad, in a way, yes. I do." Both parents stared at me. Then Dad started laughing harder. "Oh, Amanda. Your imagination has always been so creative. Next you'll tell us you're secretly a spy." Mom shook her head sadly. "Sweetie, I know it's hard watching Logan succeed while you're still figuring out your career. But making up stories about the government isn't going to help anyone." "I'm not making up stories. I've been trying to tell you all for years what I actually do for work, but none of you ever listen." "We listen," Mom said gently, like she was talking to a child. "You work in computer security for some consulting company." "That's nice, dear, but it doesn't make you qualified to give business advice to people who've been successfully running companies since before you were born." I felt the familiar weight of being dismissed, patronized, treated like the family member who just didn't understand how the real world worked. But this time, the consequences of their dismissal could destroy everything they'd built. Logan arrived for dinner with his girlfriend Vanessa, a stunning blonde who worked in marketing for a local winery. They looked like the perfect power couple, him in his expensive suit, her in designer everything. They were discussing their upcoming vacation to the Cayman Islands, a trip funded by the business's recent incredible success. Amanda was just sharing her concerns about our business partnerships, Dad said with barely contained amusement as Logan sat down. Logan's jaw tightened. "Really? What concerns now, Amanda?" "I've been trying to tell you that some of the companies you're working with are under federal investigation for money laundering. If you're moving money through them, even unknowingly, you could be charged as part of a racketeering conspiracy." The table went silent. Then Logan started laughing. "Money laundering? Racketeering? Amanda, where do you get this stuff? Do you stay up all night reading conspiracy theory websites?" Vanessa giggled. "She watches too much true crime TV. I go through phases like that too." "I don't watch true crime TV," I said quietly. "I investigate actual crimes for federal agencies." "Oh my God," Vanessa whispered in mock amazement. "Are you like undercover FBI?" The table erupted in laughter. Even Mom was wiping tears from her eyes. "Our little Amanda, federal agent," Dad chuckled. "Maybe you should write fiction books. You have such a creative mind." "I have security clearance higher than most field agents," I said, my voice getting stronger. "I've helped prosecute cybercriminals across 3 states. I know what a money laundering operation looks like, and Logan, you're running transactions through at least 2 companies that are about to be raided by federal agents. Logan's laughter died. His face went red. Enough. Amanda, this is insane, even for you. You're embarrassing yourself and insulting all of us. I don't know what kind of fantasies you've created about your little computer job, but you need to stop. We're running a legitimate business, and your paranoid delusions are not welcome at family dinners anymore. Logan, no. I'm done listening to this. Every time we see you, it's some new disaster you've imagined. Some new way our success is secretly terrible. I'm sick of it, Amanda. You need professional help. Mom reached across the table and patted my hand. Sweetheart, maybe Logan is right. You've been so anxious lately, and these elaborate stories about government work, maybe you should talk to someone. The patronizing tone was the last straw. I pulled out my phone and opened my work email, scrolling to a thread that mentioned their company by name. I slid the phone across the table to Logan. Read that, I said. Logan glanced at the screen and immediately pushed the phone back. I'm not reading your fake emails, Amanda. Anyone can make up official-looking documents on the internet. Those aren't fake. That's a real federal investigation thread, and your company is mentioned 17 times. Sure it is. Logan stood up. Vanessa, we're leaving. I'm not subjecting my girlfriend to more of Amanda's breakdown. As they gathered their coats, Logan turned back to me. Amanda, I love you, but you need help. This conspiracy theory obsession has gone too far. Until you get some professional treatment for whatever is causing these delusions, I don't think you should come to family gatherings anymore. My parents looked uncomfortable but didn't contradict him. I sat there as my family effectively banished me for trying to save them from federal prosecution. Fine, I said quietly. But when this all comes crashing down, remember that I tried to warn you. And remember that you chose not to listen. Logan shook his head sadly. Goodbye, Amanda. I hope you get the help you need. After they left, I helped Mom clear the dishes in silence. Finally, she spoke. Amanda, honey, we love you. But this fantasy about being some kind of government agent, it's concerning. Maybe you should consider talking to a therapist about these anxiety issues. Mom, what if I could prove it to you? What if I could show you my actual credentials, my security clearance, the cases I've worked on? She smiled sadly. Sweetheart, anyone can fake documents these days. The internet makes it so easy. But even if you could prove you work for the government somehow, that doesn't mean you know anything about our family business. Logan has built something wonderful, and your jealousy is clouding your judgment. I left that night knowing I'd done everything I could to warn them through normal channels. They'd made their choice to dismiss me, to treat me like a delusional child who didn't understand the real world. Now I had to decide what to do with the information I actually possessed. Back in my apartment, I spread out the classified documents across my kitchen table. The evidence was overwhelming. Logan's business was processing payments for 3 shell companies that were fronts for a drug trafficking operation. The beautiful partnerships he was so proud of, the incredible profit margins that had impressed our parents, it was all dirty money being washed through luxury goods imports. The worst part was that Logan probably had no idea. He'd been recruited specifically because he was legitimate, successful, and trustworthy. The criminals needed someone with a clean reputation to move their money, and Logan's ambition had made him the perfect mark. But ignorance wouldn't protect him from federal charges. When the hammer came down, everyone in the chain would be arrested. Logan, my parents as co-owners of the business, even their accountant and office manager. The federal government didn't distinguish between willing participants and useful idiots when it came to money laundering conspiracies. I opened my secure laptop and accessed the task force files. The raids were scheduled for the following Thursday. 7 days. That's how long my family had before their world collapsed. I made one final attempt to reach Logan. I texted him a simple message: the raids happen Thursday. You have 6 days to clean house. This is not a drill. His response came back within minutes: Amanda, I'm blocking your number. Get help. And just like that, my last lifeline to my family was severed. For 3 days, I agonized over what to do. Legally, I couldn't interfere with an ongoing federal investigation. But I also couldn't sit back and watch my family get destroyed because of their own arrogance and stupidity. Finally, I made a decision that would either save them or end my career. I called my handler, Special Agent Patrick Morrison. Patrick and I had worked together for 4 years, and he trusted my judgment more than anyone else in the bureau. Morrison. Patrick, it's Amanda. I need to talk to you about the Chen Luxury Imports case. Silence. Then, what about it? They're my family, Patrick. Logan Chen is my brother. More silence. Jesus, Amanda. Why didn't you say something earlier? Because I was hoping I could warn them off without compromising the investigation. They won't listen to me. They think I work tech support for some random company. They don't know about your federal work. They don't know about any of my real work. They've decided I'm the family failure who makes up stories about being important. Patrick sighed. Amanda, you know I can't just drop an investigation because you're related to a target. I'm not asking you to drop it. I'm asking you to give me a chance to get them out before you bring everyone down. What do you mean? Logan isn't a criminal, Patrick. He's an idiot who got played by professionals. If I can get him to voluntarily dissolve the partnerships and cooperate with the investigation, you get your big fish without destroying an innocent family. Another long pause. What are you proposing? Give me 48 hours to approach this differently. If I can get Logan to cooperate and provide evidence against the real criminals, everyone wins. And if he won't cooperate? Then you raid them as planned, and I'll help prosecute my own brother. Patrick was quiet for a long time. Finally, 48 hours, Amanda. But if this goes sideways, it's on both of us. I had 2 days to save my family from themselves. But first, I needed leverage they couldn't dismiss or ignore. I spent the next 18 hours putting together a presentation that would shatter every assumption my family had about me. Screenshots of classified emails with my name on them. Photos of me at federal buildings with agents they might recognize from news coverage. Documentation of cases I'd worked on that had made national headlines. My actual security clearance certificate. Letters of commendation from FBI directors. But the real bombshell was a recorded phone call I'd made to Patrick, where he explicitly addressed me as Agent Chen and discussed my role in several high-profile cybercrime prosecutions. I'd asked him to make the call after explaining the situation, and he'd agreed to help me establish credibility with my family. I also prepared a detailed breakdown of Logan's business dealings, showing exactly how money was being laundered through his luxury goods imports. Financial records, shipping manifests, and correspondence that painted a clear picture of a money laundering operation that Logan was facilitating, knowingly or not. Finally, I printed copies of the arrest warrants that would be executed in 30 hours. Warrants with my parents' names on them. With Logan's name. With the names of everyone who worked at their company. At 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning, I drove to Logan's office. I'd called ahead and told his assistant it was a family emergency, which was true in more ways than one. Logan's office was everything I'd expected. Corner unit, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture that screamed success. He was on the phone when I walked in, probably discussing another partnership that was actually a money laundering scheme. He held up one finger to indicate I should wait, finishing his call with promises of moving more product through our Miami connection next month. When he hung up, his expression was cold. "Amanda, I thought I made it clear that we need space until you get professional help." "I did get professional help," I said, setting my briefcase on his desk. "And they sent me here to offer you a deal." Logan leaned back in his chair. "What are you talking about?" I opened my briefcase and pulled out my federal credentials, placing them on the desk in front of him. Logan glanced at them dismissively. "Amanda, I told you, anyone can fake documents." "Call the number on that card," I said calmly. "Ask for Agent Morrison. Tell him you're calling about Agent Amanda Chen." Something in my voice must have gotten through to him because he actually picked up the card and looked at it more carefully. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed. "Yes, I'd like to speak to Agent Morrison." "Patrick Morrison." "Yes, I'll hold." Logan looked at me with growing confusion. After a moment, "Agent Morrison? This is Logan Chen, I'm calling about." "Agent Amanda Chen? You're saying she, okay, yes, I understand, thank you." He hung up and stared at me. "He confirmed you work for the FBI." "I don't work for the FBI, Logan. I work with the FBI. I'm a federal cybersecurity consultant with security clearance higher than most agents. I've been trying to tell you all this for years." Logan's face had gone pale. Why are you here?" I pulled out the arrest warrants and spread them across his desk. "Because in 26 hours, federal agents are going to arrest you, Mom, Dad, and everyone who works for this company on charges of money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances." Logan picked up one of the warrants with shaking hands. His name was typed clearly in the defendant section. "This isn't possible. We run a legitimate business." "No, Logan. You run a money laundering operation for drug traffickers. These luxury goods you're importing? They're overpriced garbage designed to justify massive cash payments. The money you're moving for your partners in Miami and Vancouver? That's drug money being washed through your books." I pulled out the financial analysis I'd prepared, showing the flow of money through his accounts. "Look at these numbers, Logan. Really look at them. You're processing $2 million a month for companies that barely exist. You're shipping $10,000 vases that wholesale for $50. Does any of this seem legitimate to you?" Logan was staring at the documents, and I could see understanding dawning in his eyes. I thought we were just really successful." "You are successful at being the perfect front for a criminal organization. They picked you because you're smart, ambitious, and legitimate. They needed someone with a clean reputation to move dirty money, and you made it easy for them. But I didn't know. I had no idea." "That doesn't matter to federal prosecutors, Logan. When you're moving millions in drug money, ignorance isn't a defense. They'll argue you should have known that no legitimate business sees growth like this without asking questions." Logan slumped in his chair. What's going to happen to us? If the raids go forward as planned? You'll be arrested, your assets will be frozen, and you'll spend the next decade fighting federal charges that could put you away for 20 years. Mom and Dad will lose everything. The business will be shut down, and your employees will lose their jobs. Unless you cooperate with the federal investigation. I've arranged for you to meet with the task force today. You provide evidence against the real criminals, you testify when needed, and your family walks away from this." Logan was quiet for a long time, staring at the warrants. "You could have just let us get arrested. After how we treated you, dismissed you, called you delusional, You could have just watched us burn. I could have. Part of me wanted to. Do you know what it's like to be treated like the family fuck-up when you're actually more successful than everyone who's dismissing you? Do you know what it's like to try to save people who won't even listen to you? Amanda, I'm so sorry. We all are. I had no idea you were this. He gestured at the credentials and documents. Why didn't you ever tell us the truth about your work? I thought about that question. Because you all decided who I was before I had a chance to show you who I became. Every time I tried to explain what I really did, you'd interrupt me, dismiss me, or change the subject. It was easier to just let you think I was nobody important. We never thought you were nobody important. Yes, you did. I was the anxious sister who worried too much and didn't understand the real world. When I tried to warn you about this investigation, you literally banned me from family dinners. Logan winced. What do we do now? We save your family. But Logan, this is going to be hard. You're going to have to admit you were wrong, face the consequences of your choices, and work with federal agents to bring down people who trusted you. Are you prepared for that? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. But your choices now are cooperation or prison. Logan nodded slowly. Set up the meeting. The next 6 hours were the longest of my life. I sat in a federal building conference room, watching my brother confess to crimes he'd committed unknowingly while federal agents took notes and asked questions. Patrick Morrison led the questioning, occasionally glancing at me with expressions I couldn't read. Logan was surprisingly helpful once he understood the situation. He provided financial records, correspondence with the criminal organizations, and detailed information about how the money laundering operation worked. He even agreed to wear a wire for future meetings with his partners. By the end of the session, Patrick had enough evidence to make cases against the real criminals without prosecuting Logan or my parents. Agent Chen, Patrick said as we prepared to leave. This was good work. Your brother's cooperation is going to help us take down a significant criminal network. What happens to my family? The business gets shut down, but they walk away clean. No charges, no arrests. Your brother will need to testify eventually, but that's better than 20 years in federal prison. Logan shook Patrick's hand. Thank you for this opportunity. And thank you for trusting Amanda's judgment. Your sister is one of the best analysts we've ever worked with. You should be proud of her. After the agents left, Logan and I sat alone in the conference room. I need to call Mom and Dad, he said quietly. What are you going to tell them? The truth. All of it. About the business, about the investigation, about you. He looked at me. Amanda, how do I even begin to apologize for how we treated you? You start by listening when I tell you things. You start by asking questions about my life instead of assuming you know what it is. You start by treating me like an adult whose opinions and expertise have value. We made you feel invisible, didn't we? I thought about all the times I'd tried to share my achievements, only to be dismissed or have the subject changed. All the times they'd introduced me as Logan's little sister who worked in computers, as if my actual accomplishments were too insignificant to mention. Yeah. You did. I'm going to fix this, Amanda. I promise. That evening, I found myself back at my parents' house for an emergency family meeting. Logan had told them everything over the phone, but they needed to see the evidence for themselves. Mom opened the door, and for the first time in my adult life, she looked at me with something approaching awe. Amanda, she whispered. Is it true? What Logan told us. That depends on what he told you. That you work for the federal government. That you saved us from prison. That we almost lost everything because we wouldn't listen to you. All true. She pulled me into a hug that felt different from any hug she'd ever given me. Not the patronizing embrace of a mother comforting her disappointing child, but the desperate gratitude of someone who'd almost lost everything. Dad was waiting in the living room, surrounded by the documents Logan had brought home. He looked up when I entered, and I saw tears in his eyes. Amanda, my daughter. I owe you an apology that I don't know how to give. Start with believing me when I tell you things. We will. From now on, we will. Mom sat down heavily on the couch. I don't understand how we got this so wrong. You tried to warn us, and we treated you like you were having a breakdown. You saw what you expected to see, I said. The anxious daughter who worried too much. You never asked what I was actually worried about, or why I might have access to information you didn't. Logan spoke up. Amanda, show them. Show them who you really are. I spent the next hour walking my parents through my actual career. The cases I'd worked on, the criminals I'd helped catch, the federal agents who considered me a peer and a friend. I showed them letters of commendation from FBI directors, photos from award ceremonies, and testimonials from prosecutors who'd won cases based on my analysis. By the end, Mom was crying openly. My daughter, she whispered. My daughter is a hero, and I never knew. I tried to tell you. We didn't want to hear it, Dad admitted. It was easier to think you were just our anxious little girl than to accept that you'd become more successful than any of us. Why didn't you make us listen? Mom asked. How? Every time I tried to explain what I did, you'd interrupt me or change the subject. When I tried to warn you about the business, you banned me from family dinners. What was I supposed to do? Logan leaned forward. You were supposed to be more insistent. You were supposed to make us understand. No, Logan. I tried for years to share my life with you all. You made the choice not to listen. That's on you, not me. The room went quiet. Finally, Dad spoke. What happens now? Now you close the business, cooperate with the federal investigation, and start over. The good news is that you're not being charged with anything. The bad news is that everything you built is gone. But we're safe, Mom said. Because of you. Because of my contacts and expertise. The same expertise you've been dismissing for years. Logan looked ashamed. Amanda, how do we make this right? How do we fix our relationship after we've been such terrible family members? I thought about that question for a long time. You start by treating me like an equal. You start by asking about my work, my life, my achievements. You start by including me in decisions and respecting my opinions. And you never, ever dismiss me as paranoid or delusional again. Done, Dad said immediately. All of it. And when I tell you I'm concerned about something, you listen. Even if you don't understand why I'm concerned, you listen. We will, Mom promised. Over the next month, I watched my family's world transform. The business was shut down by federal order, but Logan avoided prosecution entirely. My parents had to liquidate some assets to cover the legal costs, but they kept their house and their retirement savings. More importantly, they had to completely restructure how they saw me. Logan called me twice a week just to check in and ask about my work. Not because he needed anything, but because he was genuinely interested in my life for the first time in years. Mom started introducing me to people as my daughter Amanda, who works in federal law enforcement. She'd beam with pride when she said it, making up for years of treating my career like a minor hobby. Dad asked me to review his new business plans before he committed to anything. I want to make sure I'm not missing any red flags, he'd say. You see things I don't. The most satisfying moment came at a family gathering 3 months later. Logan was telling the story of how I'd saved the family business to our extended family, most of whom had previously dismissed me as the weird, anxious cousin. Amanda knew this was coming 6 months before it happened, Logan was saying. She tried to warn us, but we were too arrogant to listen. She literally saved us from federal prison, and we almost didn't let her. Aunt Sally, who'd spent years making jokes about my computer job, approached me after dinner. "Amanda, I owe you an apology." "We all do. I had no idea you were so important." "I was always important, Aunt Sally. You just never bothered to find out why." The family dynamics had completely shifted. Instead of being the anxious outsider, I was now the respected expert whose opinion everyone sought. Instead of being dismissed and patronized, I was consulted and appreciated. But the most meaningful change was in my relationship with Logan. He'd gone from treating me like an inconvenient little sister to genuinely seeing me as a peer and an ally. "You know what the crazy part is?" he said one evening as we had dinner together. "You were never the problem child we thought you were. You were the most successful person in the family, and we were too stupid to realize it." Success isn't just about money, Logan. "No, but it's about respect, achievement, and making a difference. You were doing all of that while we were accidentally laundering drug money." I laughed. "When you put it that way, it does sound pretty ridiculous." "Amanda, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why did you save us? After how we treated you, after we dismissed you and called you delusional, why didn't you just let us face the consequences?" I thought about that question, the same one I'd been asking myself for months. Because despite everything, you're still my family. And because I knew that Logan the person wasn't the same as Logan the accidental criminal. You made mistakes, but you didn't deserve to have your life destroyed over them. But we deserved to learn a lesson. And you did. The lesson is that the sister you dismissed as paranoid and unsuccessful actually had the power to save or destroy you. The lesson is that you should have been listening to me all along. Logan nodded slowly. Message received. Loud and clear. 6 months after the federal raids that never happened, Logan started a new business. This time, he consulted with me every step of the way. Not because he had to, but because he'd learned to value my expertise and judgment. My parents still struggled sometimes with accepting their daughter as the family success story, but they tried. They asked questions about my work, celebrated my achievements, and never again dismissed my concerns as paranoia. The most unexpected outcome was how much my professional reputation was enhanced by the case. Word got around the federal law enforcement community that I'd helped break up a major money laundering operation by flipping my own family. Other agencies started requesting my services, and my consulting business grew significantly. But the real victory wasn't professional or financial. It was personal. I'd spent my entire adult life being treated as the family disappointment, the anxious worrier who didn't understand the real world. Now I was finally seen for who I actually was, the most accomplished person in my family, whose expertise and connections had saved everyone I loved from disaster. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family had spent years dismissing my warnings and advice, treating me like I was paranoid and out of touch. In the end, their survival depended entirely on the very expertise they'd been mocking. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being right. But even better revenge is being right, saving the people who doubted you, and making them realize exactly how wrong they were about everything. Looking back, I realize this story isn't really about revenge at all. It's about proving your worth to people who never bothered to see it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is save someone who doesn't deserve saving, because it forces them to confront exactly how wrong they were about you. Has your family ever dismissed your expertise in your own field? Have you ever had to save people who refused to listen to your warnings? Drop your stories in the comments. I love hearing about times when being right was the best revenge of all. And if this story hit home for you, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because there are plenty more stories about family dynamics, hidden expertise, and the sweet satisfaction of being underestimated.